This is a mirrored clip of Success Archive. Thank you for watching.
The new discoveries are telling a new human story. That's the good news. It's a story of hope, possibility, self-empowerment. They're not being shared in the mainstream. You're not going to see them in the universities. You're not going to see them in the mainstream television documentaries. But we need this information now because it helps us not just to survive, but to thrive in the new world that's emerging when a lot of people are very frightened by what they're seeing in the world. We have these extraordinary potential, extraordinary capacities within us that have always been there since we showed up 200,000 years ago. It's not like they appeared and evolved as we needed them over time. There are a number of battles that are unfolding in the world right now. There's a battle for our thoughts through the media, we all know that. There's a battle for the human story, but there's a more subtle battle that is playing out for our very humanness. Technology is now being introduced to replace the essence of some of the functions that are uniquely human. So, for example, Elon Musk, who I have a lot of respect for. I think he's a brilliant man, a visionary, young, vibrant, and he is pushing this boundary of technology, is introducing computer chips. Now, the actual chip is embedded into the human brain, and the neurons of the brain are linked into the contacts on the chip that allow an individual from their brain to communicate directly with their computer hard drive. And people don't understand that we already have neurons, they're called mirror neurons, in the neocortex that help us to learn very, very quickly from observing what we see without having something like a digital interface in our brain. And this is just one example, but what the science is showing is that when we begin to use the technology to perform the functions that we already are designed to do, those functions begin to atrophy. We begin to lose those uniquely human abilities, and the question is, how much of that do we want to give away? And I'm not saying that the technology is right or wrong, or good or bad, but I'm saying that we need to be aware of what we are and who we are, the full potential of what it means to be human before we give it away, before we relinquish that, because once it's gone, we'll never get it back. So what is it? How much of our unique humanness, our ability for empathy, sympathy, compassion, emotion, self-regulation, these are all functions of the neurons, the way they're connected in our bodies, and when the technology begins to replace that, we lose those abilities. When we begin to use the machines and we don't use our own biological capacity, that capacity begins to atrophy. You know, we're seeing this in, there are cultures right now, societies, where the human relationships are being carried on digitally. They're through the computer. The people never come together at all. So they don't have to deal with the messiness of the relationship. And in those cultures, what is beginning to happen now is birth rates are declining because infertility is increasing. Women are not fertile, men are becoming more sterile. We're seeing this happen in Japan, for example. And this is one of the countries where the technology is moving so quickly that they're having digital relationships. You log onto the computer and you find a partner. And you have a tech...
You end up marrying a robot.
Well, you can do that, or you can actually have sex over the internet. You have a tech package as a male or a tech package as a female, and you hook it to your body, and the person on the other end pushes the buttons that manipulate the package that's attached to your body. Now, I'm not saying it's not right, wrong, good, or bad, but we're losing the intimacy of human relationships, and biologically, what is happening is birth rates are dropping and our ability to reproduce are dropping, and that is just one example. So I'm saying it's important for us to know what does it really mean to be human, and we're only beginning to understand. New neurons, a new class of neurons were discovered only in August of 2018. And scientists thought they had everything. Neurons in the human heart were only discovered in the 90s. neurons in the heart that think, feel, and remember independently of the cranial brain. So this is new, and we're on the verge of giving our power away before we even understand what it means to be fully human. We have today what modern humans had when they emerged 200,000 years ago. So scientists say to us now that we're in uncharted territory because science is not equipped to deal with the implications. If evolution, if these random processes did not cause this, then it suggests an intentionality. And if there's an intentionality, it implies that there is a purpose. Now, science isn't really equipped to deal with that. I'm interested now, once we understand that, I'm interested in how do we awaken the full potential of what we were given 200,000 years ago? How do we awaken the potential of all of these extraordinary abilities? Yeah. So it appears that we have this extraordinary package, and the ancients said that we have godlike powers. So we now know that we have the ability, for example, we have the ability to self-regulate our own biology, and this is a very different way of thinking. We are the only form of life, Lila, that we can sit in a moment in time, and we can choose in a moment in time to awaken the longevity enzymes within every cell of our body. What that means is that we will all move forward in chronological time. An hour from now, we will be an hour older than we were an hour ago. However, biologically, the biological markers for aging, when we awaken these enzymes, we can actually become younger biologically, even though we grow older chronologically. We're the only form of life that can do that. We're the only form of life that can consciously, in a moment in time, choose to strengthen our immune response, to activate deep states of intuition to allow us to communicate with other forms of life. We're the only form of life that can consciously trigger over 1,300 positive biochemical reactions in our body. We can create resilience to change. We can become super memory, super cognition, super recall. I mean, all of these things are that we are wired to do so much more than we've been led to believe. Now, this would be important at any time. It's critical now because of the context. The world is changing, and the world is globalizing. 8 billion, almost 8 billion people are being forced together in ways that we never have before, and we have our own unique ways of thinking. We have our religions and our cultures and the way that men think about women and women think about men, color of our skin, all of these things. We're being asked to embrace this unity, but we're being asked to do it through the thinking of separation from the past. The better we know ourselves in here, the less fear we have of other people, and the better, the healthier our integration is going to be. If we want to move beyond the hate is the product of fear. There's a lot of fear when we merge people together and we don't know what that means. It's new and it's different. And as humans, typically we resort to fear. We don't always know that, so it's expressed as anger and hate. And the way to heal that, as we know ourselves better in here, we're less threatened by what's new out there, and we begin to embrace it. So it's more than interesting. This is more than a philosophical conversation. This is critical for our future. And we now know that it's possible to harmonize the neurons in the heart with the neurons in the brain. So now what we're talking about, two organs become one system. No other form of life can consciously harmonize the neurons in the heart and the brain into one system. It's called heart-brain coherence. When we create the heart-brain coherence, within that state, when we engage the mirror neurons, that's where the magic happens. We're living this rare, precious moment in the history of our planet when many natural cycles are converging in a way that we've never seen in 5,000 years of human history. And that convergence is changing the world. And as the world changes, the old ideas that are no longer sustainable, those ideas are lighting up so that they can be healed. We now know what works and what doesn't work. And because there are so many systems that are collapsing, energy systems, economic systems, the way we share vital resources, food, water, energy, medicine, defense, communications, all those things, there is an openness now, Lilu, to embrace new ways of thinking that I've never seen in my lifetime. I was alive in the 1960s when a thought revolution swept the planet, and this revolution is it is so much more even than the 1960s, and it's being embraced on a global level. I think I'm also a realist, and realistically, I think we're going through some difficult times to get to the other side. The systems have to break down, and that breakdown looks like chaos. But in nature, this is the way nature works. A system will become so complex that it's no longer sustainable, and then it must break down to give way to a higher order. And so what we're living now, we're seeing our world is very complex. We're seeing those unsustainable systems break down, but they're not just breaking for no reason. They're breaking to give way to a higher order. And the chaos is intense, but it usually is brief. It doesn't last lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. What we're doing now, we can't go on the way we are right now. Something's got to give. And the good news is that we already have all of the answers to the big questions. We already know how to create energy without burning fossil fuels. We know how to grow food without taking acres and acres and acres of land and being susceptible and vulnerable to climate. We already know that the climate is changing. We know where that change is going to lead, and we know how to adapt to that change. We know how to live together. The people of the world, I've been all over this world. The people of this world, I believe, genuinely love one another, and they know how to live together. It's a handful of people in positions of power that are having the problems. It's not the everyday people having the problems. And I think those are all really good. It's good news. So if we can just hold together as a global family and embrace the new discoveries that tell us the deepest truths of our existence, and we bring those truths to bear upon our lives, we become the best version of ourselves and the best version of the world that's possible. And I believe that we will see that in our lifetime. We're seeing it happen now.
Thank you for watching it here on the Hidden Hand YouTube channel. Let me know what you think below. One love, one vibration.